You may have heard of a company called LeEco because of a phone that they released earlier this year that was the first to have the Snapdragon 820. Well, LeEco is back with the follow-up on that flagship device, but they're trying to be known for way more than just the processor in their phone. It's Joshua Vergara from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And this is the LeEco Le Pro 3. Essentially, you start off with the smartphones, and what we have here are two different smartphones, one in the flagship space and the other one in the mid-range space, but we'll take a look at the Le Pro 3 right now. Now, it sports a 5.5-inch Full HD display, Qualcomm's powerful Snapdragon 821 that we've already seen in the Google Pixel, 4GB of RAM, 64GB of onboard storage, a fingerprint reader on the back, and a 16-megapixel camera. It also has a sizable 4,070 mAh battery that LeEco says will charge to 33% in just 20 minutes. And also, it does not sport a headphone jack. Instead, it provides continual digital lossless audio, quote-unquote, through its USB Type-C port. Now, holding the device in the hand, there was one thing I couldn't get out of my mind. This device looks like a OnePlus 3 with a fingerprint scanner on it. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's still a nice and sleek looking device, and with the metal construction that now is a glossy construction, you have a pretty flashy device that feels nice and sturdy and pretty hefty in the hand. The cameras do sound really promising, especially with an 8-megapixel camera on the front, but the camera app shows that it might be a somewhat simplistic experience. Of course, we don't have any shots to be able to show you. On the other hand, you have the software, which is vastly different as it usually is from these Chinese manufacturers, in that this version of Android, though it does come with all of the different bells and whistles that you would expect in an Android device, it also comes with its own flavor of the launcher. Now, you don't have a app drawer on here. It is instead replaced by the LeTV ecosystem. Essentially, it's a streaming service, one of which that LeEco, when they were known as LeTV, was very much known for. After all, LeEco now has streaming all over the place, and there are billions of views on a number of their original dramas, and you get access to that straight on this device. Hitting the live button on the bottom where the app drawer button would usually be takes you to the live streaming service where there are a number of different channels available that you can stream directly from and see all of their content. But an extra function that's available here is the ability to shrink down that window so that you are watching the live streaming content in that little window that can float around, and you can move it around so that it is always available no matter what you're doing on the phone. By far, however, the best part about this device is that it will indeed disrupt a little bit of what we are used to now in even the mid-range space of Android, because it'll be coming in at $399, but especially if you try to buy the phone on November 2nd and you sign up for the company's Le Rewards program, you can get the phone with a $100 instant rebate and get it for just $299. Now, as it probably should have been, everyone in the audience gasped when they heard this, as it has been a while since we've had a phone at such a price point that sported some of the higher end specifications you would expect from a flagship device priced like a flagship. Now, LeEco also brought out their mid-range Le S3, and it will also be available in the Le Mall in the US for $249. That is its starting price, and there is an instant rebate involved there, but of course, the main story is the Le Pro 3 with its rebate. The S3 comes with a 5.5-inch display as well, a Snapdragon 652 processor instead, and 3GB of RAM with 32GB of onboard storage and a 3,000 mAh battery. Many of its specifications are very much the same, including the cameras, and also the fact that it has a fingerprint reader on the back. Now, this particular device, even though it has a similar size, actually feels a lot lighter than the Le Pro 3, and it has a non-glossy metal construction that kind of shines a little bit less than the Le Pro 3 and probably is not as much of a fingerprint magnet. Now, even though the S3 definitely feels like a mid-range device, we have to give credit where credit is due, and the Le Pro 3 is probably one of those phones you want to look out for, despite the fact that it might come with a different flavor of Android that we're not necessarily used to here in the US. On top of that, however, if the camera seems to hold up and the performance is top-notch, as it probably should be being a flagship of its kind, then that $299 price point on November 2nd, and even $399 across, is probably going to be a hot topic for you to consider in the end of 2016. So when we get our hands on a review unit, keep it tuned here for our full review, and remember that Android Authority is your source for all things Android.